Hey guys, sorry for the ranty video, but I'm just going to keep making a lot of these videos because I think they have a lot of really good information. And today we're going to talk about 5 reptile species that, number one, I will probably never own, but a lot of people should probably think for a little while before they ever want to consider getting those. So these 5, there's plenty out there that may not necessarily be a good fit for 90% of the people out there to actually keep, but these ones are based on, the type of care they need, the amount of room they need, the commitment, the specific diets, and in all honesty, kind of how dangerous they are. So here are 5 species or types of reptiles that I will probably never own and that a lot of people may not necessarily be a good fit for those. And the number one to start off with is venomous reptiles, specifically venomous snakes. So this one's already pretty easy that a lot of people can't get because in most places in the country, it's actually illegal to have them. And a lot of the places where it is legal to have them, you require special permits and a process to go through to actually acquire them and keep them legally. The main reason why I say that, number one, I will never own them is because A, it's illegal to keep them here in Colorado, but B, it's not something that I really want to mess with. Like, even some of the more, beginner or not nearly as, deadly as like a king cobra or something like that, like a palm pit viper, it's still something that could end your life with a single bite. And anybody who's had snakes for a while knows it's when you get bit. And I know there's a lot of people that have had venomous reptiles for decades and they've never once been bit, but that's not really a risk that I personally ever really want to take. So I think it'd be really cool to have them, maybe even do some sorts of interactions, but actually keep them in the house where my family and other things are. It's just not really something that I'm okay with. And for people who do want to be able to have venomous reptiles and they think they're really cool, because venomous reptiles are absolutely amazing. Some of the most beautiful snakes on the planet are venomous snakes, like a bushmaster, the palm pit vipers, the mangshang vipers. Those things are gorgeous animals. It's almost like the difference between like a freshwater and a saltwater fish tank between a lot of non-venomous and venomous snakes. But there's a lot of thought processes you need to go to. You need to have dedicated caging. You need to have multiple barriers of locks. The room needs to have a lock. The cage needs to have a lock. All these things that you really should take into mind before thinking about trying to get one of these really amazing animals, but very dangerous animals as well, legally to have as to keep as a pet. The next one on the list is one that I'm clearly demonstrating right now, and that's crocodilians. Crocodilians are a really cool, amazing reptile. I've worked with a couple species. I have some videos on our channel about that. I know people who keep a couple different species of caiman, and that's really cool. They are great animals, but they are very potentially dangerous. And they need a lot of room and specific care to be cared for properly. I know, like, someone like Emily on Snake Discovery, they have their little alligator. I'm spacing on her name. Rex, the alligator. She rescued her from a bad situation and is improving her health. But that's not an animal that that most people should think about bringing in, to be able to house that. For a regular healthy alligator, they start as these adorable, cute little things, but they very quickly turn into over 10-foot long, I don't want to use the word monster, but these giant reptiles that require thousands of gallons of water, that needs to be cleaned and filtered, that needs to have, they need to have area for basking, they need to have varied diets and all these things that alligators, while yes, we've seen the YouTube personalities and other people and I've worked with them, but those are in dedicated facilities that have not only the money to accommodate those things, but can give the requirements that needed to keep them happy and healthy. I mean, even some of the small caiman lizards, like the wedgeheads and the culvers and the dwarf caimans and things like that, they could eventually get 4 to 6 feet long, and those have a lot of force behind their bites, and they can take fingers and hands. And it's a big commitment and a potentially dangerous animal that you want to keep and bring into your house. That isn't necessarily right for a lot of people. They don't make the best reptile pets. And there are a lot of other reptile pets that people would consider probably a little bit on the, dangerous side, like large constrictors and stuff, but I would think would make a much more appropriate pet or even display animal before you get really any species of crocodilian. The next species or type of animal on my list is probably the only one that I would recommend that yeah, probably a lot of these people could have. That's not even a reptile species. It's the only one on my list that I want to talk about that isn't a reptile species, and that's old world tarantulas. So, like I said, a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with keeping these things. Yes, all spiders are venomous, but the reason why I personally will never have an old world species of tarantula is, once again, number one, where I live. The city in Colorado where I live doesn't allow, well, they technically say poisonous reptiles, but the first thing they ask, well, do you have any scorpions or tarantulas? They're not poisonous, they're venomous, but whatever may have you, they don't necessarily want those having there. So, having a tarantula is not necessarily the best idea. And then the second one is old world tarantulas have what a lot of people who keep arachnids or are just kind of starting to get into the hobby have a little bit of a different behavior than a lot of the new world ones. So old world tarantulas are tarantulas that come from Africa and Asia. New world come from the Americas. So the Americas are like Rosie that everybody always has at the zoo or the insectariums wherever you live. They have the little rose-haired or the curly-haired tarantula, to even the large, bird-eating Goliath tarantulas. They're all terrestrial. They're all fairly heavy-bodied. Their behavior is fairly the same. Their husbandry varies from, depending on the species. But old world tarantulas, specifically the more tree spiders and the baboon tarantulas, those are the ones that, as a whole, and I don't like to give blanket statements like this, but specifically like the baboon and the African tarantulas are more quick to bite as a whole, for the most part, and that's it is a bit of a blanket statement, but they're more quick to bite. And then the arboreal Asian tarantulas, like the Indian ornamentals and the sapphire blues, are much faster. They're actually capable of moving faster than the human eye can even keep up with at times. So that's an animal that, number one, even for a sling, is quite expensive when you consider it's a little spider, regardless of what you feel about them. But if it can move faster than an eye can keep up with, it's gonna get out, and then I'm not gonna be the one to find it. One of my cats will, which will be a very expensive cat treat for when that cat finds it. In addition to that, a lot of the time the venom from old world tarantulas, like the Togo baboons and the cobalt blues, or HMAX, which is an abbreviation for their Latin term, those have a tendency to be a little bit more potent to human biology than a lot of the New World ones, where most of their reaction is flicking the reticulated hair, I keep saying reticulated, I don't know why, the irritating hairs that they'll kick them up with their back legs off their abdomen, that irritates and itches and burns skin. That's 90% of the time their first defense mechanism other than just trying to get away is, where the old worlds are more quick to bite and to run. And so, when you have an animal that's very fast, a little bit, not necessarily aggressive, but defensive and more quick to rear up and take a pop at you, it's not something that I necessarily want to work with, and that I don't have the passion for those as much as I do a lot of other actual reptile species. But I felt like it not only needed to be mentioned a little bit on this list, but because arachnids are part of the our herpetocultural hobby, and they need to be talked about. I think tarantulas are really cool. I would love to have a cute little rose-haired tarantula or a Mexican red knee, but that's neither here nor there. That's probably I will never have one. The next one on the list is one that isn't actually dangerous, but keeping it was very detrimental to its health because its care is so specific, and that's the horned lizards. So a lot of people in the Midwest or Southwest, they've heard of the horned lizards or the horny toads, and they've probably seen around or heard their parents talking a little bit about them. They are these tiny little lizards that mostly are found in kind of sandy or rocky arid regions that are adorable. There's quite a few species of them. One of the larger ones is called the Texas horned lizard. They're even found here in Colorado. They get, not really big, and some of them stay very small. They're absolutely adorable, and some of them have this really cool defense mechanism where they'll actually shoot blood from their eyes, and they have really good accuracy with it to try to deter predators, because that's just kind of really gross. But the problem with those is that they only eat ants and very small invertebrates, so ants, ant larvae, termites, and things like that. And so if you wanted to try to keep that animal in the hobby, that means you have to have a steady and varied supply of tiny little invertebrates all the time. it's something that most people in just, the hobby that isn't working in a zoo or a specific facility that they are able to accommodate that sort of diet, you're going to end up killing that animal, which is just absolutely terrible. And so that's why it's something I necessarily wouldn't recommend to have, keeping it as a pet. I personally don't have one because I know that I won't be able to give it the diet that it needs to be able to survive and thrive. The last one on the list is another species that I think does or can make a really good pet, but it's one that I probably will never have, and that's large monitor lizards. So I've talked about them in previous videos and things like that, but large monitor lizards can make amazing pets. They're highly intelligent, they're very personable, they can be trained and worked with to be almost kind of puppy dog tame out there. They can be target trained, all these other crazy cool things, but the fact is they get very large and they need a lot of area to be able to, survive and thrive. And or if you don't give them a lot of area or as large areas, some people will say they need like whole rooms and things, is you need to be able to interact with them daily for long extended periods of time after a while to give them the kind of mental stimulation and experiences that they need to be happy and healthy. They're incredibly intelligent animals, probably one of the most intelligent reptile species that we keep in the hobby, period. And so you have this very large lizards, and probably water monitors are some of the ones that are most easily available, readily available, quickest to kind of, come to terms with things, not so reactionary, and can get more in tune with how people work. They can become these very large, over 6 foot long apex predators that are very carnivorous. Some, basically, they're entirely carnivorous, where that's all they eat, but you need to vary their diet, you need to have high temps, you need to have high humidity. The care varies if you have a water monitor, a Nile monitor, an ornate, a lace, things like that, to where I would love to be able to have a monitor species. The black dragons, those melanistic water monitors, a bell phase lace monitor, even a really cool ornate, that striking yellow animal looks so cool. But I know that I will never be able to have the ability to give them not only the space that they probably need, not probably, but they do need, or the time that they need to have to interact to come in tune with things. I have a couple of iguana species that arguably need as much time and interaction as the monitor lizards, but they're less inclined to react defensively in an aggressive manner where they're going to come quickly take a bite. My large red iguana, she doesn't bite, she doesn't even really tail whip most of the time unless she's on the ground and she gets startled. But the blue iguana doesn't really like to be messed with. He will always try to hide up at the top of the aviary most of the time. And the rhinoceros iguana, who is on the ground, is still very skittish, doesn't like being interacted with, and it's a process that we're very slowly working with. And so that's an animal that gets pretty large, can be aggressive, have a big bite behind it, that you don't really want to mess with. And so when you're talking about a monitor lizard that's just kind of that doubled up or tripled up on just the type of personality, behavior, and species of reptile that it is an animal that most people may not be able to be the best fit for that. And so when you have a lot of these animals that, just without the crazy morphs and stuff like that are fairly inexpensive, and they want to buy this animal because they see them on, I think there was one on a Disney Channel show or on YouTube personalities and stuff like that, where they see this very large personal lizard. A lot of people just don't have the ability to take care of that. And I know that I can't do that, so that's why I don't have a large monitor lizard. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of good information from this. I'm not throwing out a lot of facts or Latin names or stuff like that, but hopefully this is some decent information for you guys. And if you were thinking about getting an animal like this, maybe you're having a little bit of second thoughts, or maybe you still really want to. So maybe this will spur you on to dig a little bit deeper, to get more information, to talk to people who have kept and owned them for long, extended periods of time, not who got one on Black Friday and still may or may not have it right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. You got some down below. Let me know about a reptile that you keep that may necessarily be a little, controversial or a little dangerous for some people. Let me know down in the comments what you have, how you take care of it, things like that. If you have any suggestions about what to do, any topics, questions about specific reptile species or anything like that, hit me up on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm still working on a website. Things are a little crazy right now, but hopefully eventually want to get a little bit more stable thing like that. Let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you can. Hitting that bell notification. I'm actually getting some interaction with people these days, and it's amazing. I love it. I love to be able to share my knowledge and passion. Hopefully you guys are taking something from this. Hope you have a good day, and I'll check you next time.